Alright guys, I have several videos on my channel that shows you how to fully modify a Crybaby, how to modify the circuit to change the tonality and feel, how to remove the buffer, make a true bypass, add a light, change the transistors, make it into a volume pedal, make it into an expression pedal. Literally everything you can do to a Crybaby is on my channel. Now, one of the last things I'm going to show you now is how to paint one with a custom paint job. Okay, the tools we're going to need to take this enclosure apart is a 1/4-inch socket drive to remove this nut, and there's also another one underneath the circuit board. You're going to need some type of rod, ramrod, to hammer this pin out. You can use a metal rod like this. This is a 1/4-inch rod. You can use a screw or a punch. I like to use a rod to knock this out, and I like to use a punch to put it back in. I'll show you that in the video. First thing we'll do is remove all the circuitry electronics, and then we'll start taking it apart. Okay, now that we have our electronics removed, yours should look blank like that. Next thing I'm going to do is take this screw off and then this screw, because they put a full long screw here and then cut it. Sometimes these threads could be a little messed up, so the screw will just turn and turn and turn. If that happens, just concentrate on taking this one off, and we'll get to that one later. Okay, now that our tension bar is out of there, it should be all loose like that. I'm going to get the ramrod, and when you're looking at the pin in here, you'll see that one side is flat and has these little groove notches for grip. That's not the side we're going to be hammering on. This side, I don't know if you can see it in the camera, it has a little bit of a taper to it where it kind of goes up and flattens out. This is the side we're going to be hammering on. So I'm going to put my pin, my ramrod there, or my punch, or a screw, whatever you're going to be using. Give it a few taps. Now, this rod, I pushed it through, and now it's hitting my table. So I'm going to pull it off my table a little bit and finish hitting that through. Okay, now this is fully taken apart. Again, if your screw was stuck right here, now you can put your screwdriver there and unscrew it completely. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to heat the back of this up with a heat gun and remove the label. And we'll take our rubber tread off. This is just taped down. You should be able to pull up a corner and just peel it off like that. Sometimes these are stubborn and will leave pieces of this tape behind. All you have to do is give it a really, really good rub and take all that stuff off. They don't always come off this easy. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is take off this label logo. I'm going to use a heat gun. I'm going to heat up the back for about 30 or 40 seconds. That should be enough to release the glue here. And I'm going to stick a razor blade underneath the plate there and just lift up like that. Once we get this hot enough, it should lift up fairly easy. If you don't have a heat gun, you can use a hair dryer, although it might take a few more minutes. Okay, that should be enough. Another way of judging how long to heat it up is once you start to feel it warm in your hand down here, since we're heating it up there, it probably has heated up enough. So I'm going to get my razor underneath the logo, lift up, should come off like that. Now we are ready to sand. Okay, before we start sanding the Crybaby, let me give you a couple of tips. You don't want to sand this by hand. You want to use the vibrational palm sander, the triangular one that looks like a mouse, or a orbital sander, which is what I use. We're shooting for a 220 grit. You can use just a 220 grit, sand this down to bare metal, and you'll be good to go. If you want it to go a little faster, you can use something like an 80 grit or 100 grit. Take all the black texture finish off and then go back over that with a 220 and smooth it all over. Once we get it all sanded up, we can start prepping for paint. All right, now that I have the Crybaby sanded, I went ahead and washed this with dish soap. So it took off all the dirt, dust, grime, and grease. This pedal is now clean and prepped, ready to paint. When it comes to painting, you have a couple of different options. You can do the traditional automotive style paint with the paint gun. I don't like doing that method because You have to put the primer down, clean the gun, put the base coat down, clean the gun, put the clear coat on, clean the gun, and that's just too much prep and setup to paint one pedal. So I like to use these rattle cans. I use Behr, Rust-Oleum, Seymour, Krylon, Killer cans, whatever looks good. And most of them say paint and primer. Most of the spray cans say paint and primer, but you have to know what paints can be sprayed without having to lay down a primer. For an example, most of the dark colors you can just spray it right on, no primer needed. But if it's a if it's a light color, it could look a little transparent. So when you spray it on, you'll still see what's underneath. So when it comes to the lighter colors, it would be better to spray the primer, then your base coat, then lastly, we put our protective clear coat on. Now, a lot of these spray rattle cans are fast drying. A lot of times you can touch and handle them within 20 minutes to an hour. But depending on the climate that you're in, it could take 24 hours to cure. But here in South Texas, San Antonio, where I'm at, it could take days, weeks to cure. So what I like to do is after I spray my pedals, I like to put them in a toaster oven. Don't use your own toaster oven. Go to a Goodwill and buy one for like $10, and you can always use that for future other projects that you paint and whatever. So we'll put this in the toaster oven right around 150 to 200 degrees for about 20 to 30 minutes. After that, the pedal is cured. You don't have to wait 24 hours or days. It'll literally be cured in an hour. You put it in the oven for 20-30 minutes, take it out of the oven, let it rest for another 20-30 minutes. Once it's cooled down and dry, it's hard and cured, ready to work, ready to go. And we should be done by that point. And all we have to do is reassemble the pedal. All right, now that we have the Crybaby painted, it's time to assemble. First, we're going to start with our tension bar. The long screw goes on the bottom. I'm only putting the nut on right there so it can be loose and lift up. The little screw goes on the top, and like I had said earlier in the video, sometimes these threads are a little messed up and they can be tricky to start. Okay, I also have this screw on a little loose as well. And again, that's so this bar can pop up and we can put our rod through there. So the next thing we're going to do is make sure that this gear goes in here when we put it in, because once we put that rod in, it's going to suck if this is still down like that and you have to take it all apart again. So we're going to make sure that that goes in here. And on the right side of the pedal, we're going to put our rod in. Okay, I have the rod in there like that. And I'm going to use my punch. I'm going to put it there in the center and then hammer it down. You can use a screw if you like. I like using a punch. Okay, we have our rod in there now. We can tighten these screws up. Okay, once we have the tension rod nice and tight, you can see that it now has tension and it's not all floppy. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to sand this little post right here a little bit, because on the back of the circuit board right here, that's ground. So when we put our screw to mount the thing, it's supposed to be grounding on here, but if it has this black paint texture, it's not going to make a good ground. So I like to just sand the top of this. Okay, that's nice and shiny. That's going to make a nice ground. All we have to do now is reassemble the pedal.